I want to tell you a story. No, stories are not always true. This is not a story. So let me start over. I want to tell you the truth. The truth about what happened that day my friends and I decided to go skydiving. Now, due to the non disclosure agreement that I had to sign and the $250,000 settlement, I can't tell you the name of the company. I'll just say they fly left instead of right. Get it? Anyway, you might have heard about it on the radio or saw it on the news. I know I certainly did. But they did not tell you what really happened. No, they only told you what they were allowed to say. What I'm about to tell you is the God's honest truth. Now, you have to understand that I'm one of those people, keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. I don't like heights. Hell, I don't even like standing on a chair to change a light bulb. It's not that I'm afraid of falling, it's that sudden stop that bothers me. So, the thought of me going skydiving is something that has never crossed my mind until that day. It started out like any other normal Saturday. I got up around 7, put on a pot of coffee, took a shower while it was brewing, got dressed, went and got myself a cup of coffee, and went out and sat on the front porch. I just was sitting there when my phone rang. It was Eric. A lot of people call him Skippy or Skip. I just call him Eric. He had been a friend of mine since junior high. Anyway, I answered the phone. Hey, Eric, what's up? It's a little early to be calling, man. I just got up. I said, still groggy. Oh, hey, sorry about that, man. But look, Dylan, Stacy, Ronnie, and I are going skydiving later this morning. You want to go? He asked. How long have we known each other? I don't even live in a two-story house because it's too high off the ground. What makes you think I began to say? Eric then cut me off by pulling the Amanda card on me. What's the Amanda card? You ask? Well, you see, Amanda was Eric's sister, who I had a major, let's say, crush on since before high school. Amanda's gone, he said in a yeah. I just pulled that card, Tone. Really, man? You're gonna pull that card on me? I asked. Hey, whatever works, man, he replied, laughing. You're an asshole, Eric, I stated. I know, it's one of my better qualities, he replied, laughing louder this time. Fine, I'll be there, but if I die, I'm coming back to haunt your ass, I stated laughingly. Cool, man. See you at the airport. 11 o'clock. Bring a barf bag, he said. You really are an asshole, Eric, I said. See you then, buddy. Later. Yeah, later, I replied. I went back in the house and got another cup of coffee and decided to get changed. Pair of torn jeans and coffee as my blood type t-shirt would have been fine if it were only the five of us going, but no. Amanda was going too. I had to look my best. I put on my best pair of jeans with the black belt, a maroon colored button up collared shirt with a blue tie, and my best pair of black Nikes. It was not going to work, but you can't say I didn't try. Anyway, I hung around the house until about 10:30. At that point, I grabbed my wallet, my keys, and headed out to the car. Got in, started her up, and began my drive to the airport. On my way there, a crow hit my windshield, right in my line of vision. Bird blood and brains all over the windshield. Holy shit, I screamed, hitting the brakes and stopping in the middle of the road. Thank God there was no cars behind me. Now, I can't say that I'm a very superstitious man, but I am to some point. Some people believe that a bird hitting your car is a sign of impending doom. I didn't believe it then, but I do now. I looked in the rearview mirror to see the crow flopping around on the road. I whipped my head around to look out the back window, and I watched in total shock. as the bird stood up. Its face was completely smashed in. Its head was leaning over to the left, with one of its eyes hanging out. Blood was everywhere. It caught a few times, then it just flew away, head still hanging to the left. What in the hell? I said to myself. That bird should be dead. I turned back around, trying not to shit myself from what I just saw. I slowly reached up and turned on the windshield wipers and the sprayers to try and clear out the windshield. My wipers were really old, so all I did was smear it. I could hardly see through all that mess. I stopped off at that creepy little gas station in town and used their windshield cleaning thing that's always by the gas pumps. I got back in and drove to the airport. I parked the car and got out. I then began walking up to the terminal, which was actually a double wide trailer. Anyway, I saw one of my old classmates, some guy named Richie or something, mowing the grass. And he was a strange kid in high school, so I didn't even acknowledge him. I turned the corner of the terminal to see all four of my friends and the blonde goddess known as Amanda standing there. I walked up to him. You actually showed up, Ronnie? We were taking bets on whether or not you were going to bail or not. I win, Amanda said happily in a cute little voice that drove me absolutely insane. She then did a little jiggly bounce. Give me the money, she said laughingly as Stacy handed it over to her. She stood there counting it. When she was done, she turned to me and said flirtatiously, I knew you would come. She then kissed the money and slapped it on her right thigh. Money in the bank, she said, smiling, putting it in her pocket. Amanda knew that I liked her and used it to her advantage every chance she got. It's not a very attractive personality trait, but her physical appearance outweighed it, at least to me. She's short, about 5'3", slightly chubby, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and pouty lips. I, on the other hand, am tall, kind of nerdy, about 6'1", skinny, with curly brown hair and glasses. Eric was the partier of the bunch, always with a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. He was short like Amanda with long black hair. Ronnie was tall like me, African American, and very athletic. He played baseball in school and ran track. He was also very intelligent. Stacy was a little bit taller than Amanda. She was very shy and timid with long brown hair. And then there was Dylan. Dylan was every father's nightmare. He was the bad boy type, greasy black hair, white t-shirt, leather jacket, and jeans. He looked a lot like the Fonz from Happy Days. He wore that outfit all the time. I don't think he had any other clothes. Anyway, let's get going. Where is this guy? Dylan said, flicking his cigarette to the ground. As soon as he finished his sentence, this big Tom Arnold looking guy opened the door to the terminal and stepped out. He wore Bermuda shorts, a flowery Hawaiian shirt, socks with sandals, and wore an old fisherman's hat. Hey, y'all, you fixin' to go skydiving? He said in a really bad impression of a southern accent. Yeah, Dylan said. That's what we paid for. Now, I don't like to talk bad about people, karma and all, but this guy looked like he was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. You get what I'm saying? Well, let's get to getting then. My name's Steve, he said. My plane's right over here. He then pointed to a cluster of different planes and began walking towards them. Where's the other guy? Dylan asked. Steve stopped and turned around. Oh, he went and called out sick. I'm his replacement. We all just looked at him funny. Come on, we're burning daylight here, people. Let's go, Steve said and began walking towards the planes again. We all followed him in a pack. He looked back at Amanda, smiling on occasion. Anyway, we were just about to reach the plane, which had the company name on it, when a black cat came out of nowhere and ran directly in the middle of us, almost tripping Stacy. Okay, first a bird hit my windshield. Now a black cat crossed our path. Something bad is going to happen, I thought. I stopped dead in my tracks. Guys, I don't think this is a good idea, I stated. They all stopped and turned around. Come on, man, I've done this 100 times. It's totally safe, Dylan said. Please, Amanda said, pouting her lip. If I had listened to the head on my shoulders, all that shit wouldn't have happened. But like always, when it came to Amanda, let's just say that wasn't what was doing my thinking. All right, I said, beginning to walk again. We got to the plane, and Steve opened the door. I have no idea what kind of plane it was, but it was bigger than I thought it would be. I counted 22 seats. Anyway, we piled in. Steve was the last to enter, shutting the door behind himself. He then sat in the pilot's seat while the six of us took our seats in the back. There were 9 parachutes and 9 helmets hanging on both sides of the plane. Grab a chute and a helmet and put 'em on, Steve instructed. Dylan showed me how to put it on and told me what to do. This is your ripcord. When you jump out, you're going to fall really fast. Don't be scared. Yeah, right, I thought. Count to 50 and pull the cord and the chute will open. As you pull the cord, arch your back and put your head back, like this. He then gave a demonstration. The chute will catch air and open, giving your body a jolt as it decreases the speed of your fall drastically. Now, once you've leveled out, come back to a normal position. There'll be 2 handles dangling on your left and right, about head level. Grab the handles, but don't pull them yet. Now, when you want to turn, pull down on the right one to turn right, and pull down on the left one to turn left. Pull down on both of them at the same time to slow your descent. When you feel your feet hit the ground, tuck and roll. Got it? He said. God, I hope so, I replied. Oh, don't worry. It'll be all right. You'll be fine, Dylan said, assuring me. Yeah, you'll be fine, Eric said. Piece of cake, bro, Ronnie said. Stacy and Amanda didn't say anything. We gonna climb to 18,000 feet, and when I say go, you jump, Steve said, and started the plane. 18, Dylan said loudly. I've only jumped from 14. Don't worry, Steve said assuringly, turning around and smiling. More free fall time, my boy. And away we go, Steve said in a sing-songish as the plane then began to move. I was starting to get nervous. Now, I wasn't nervous. I was scared shitless. At that point, I just so happened to look out of the window and saw a man in a white shirt, a black tie, wearing black pants, a black jacket, and a black hat come running out of the terminal, waving his arms in the air. I could tell he was screaming by the way his mouth was moving. I tapped Dylan on the shoulder and pointed out the window. He looked and saw the same thing I did. What the hell? He said loudly. Steve then yelled out, Y'all all right back there? As the plane lifted off the ground. Yeah, we're fine, I shouted. Dylan then gathered everyone together in the back of the plane. Steve is not the real pilot, he whispered. Stacy then screamed and covered her mouth. The others had a look of shock on their faces. How did he get the key, and does he even know how to fly this thing? I whispered. I don't know. No one does, Amanda answered. What's going on back there? Steve yelled. I accidentally stepped on her foot, that's all, Eric yelled back. We're just talking about it, Ronnie said. We all just looked at him. He then shrugged his shoulders. All right, listen, Dylan whispered once again. Let's just play this out. If we make a scene, Steve, or whatever the hell his name is, could crash the plane and we all die. Just pretend that nothing's wrong. When we reach the jump height, we jump and leave Mr. Socks and Sandals up here to do whatever he wants to do with the plane, all right? We all just shook our heads. We spent the next 20 minutes or so just sitting there, eyes forward, and not saying a word. After a while, Steve announced, "We're at 17.5, y'all. Get ready to jump." He then put the plane on autopilot. I guess he really does know how to fly this thing, I thought. Anyway, he left the cockpit and took a position by the door. We all then formed a line to the right side of it, holding the bar next to us. Ronnie was first, then Eric, then Stacy, then Amanda, then me, and Dylan was last. Ronnie was standing in front of the door, and Steve then whipped it open. A huge gust of wind came bursting through the cabin of the plane. "Fly, my little birdies, fly!" Steve yelled excitedly. "Go!" and motioned for Ronnie to jump. He did. Steve then counted to 10 out loud. The sequence continued until it was my turn. I just stood there, even after he told me to go. The second time he told me to go, I looked at Dylan. He just smiled at me. I will remember that smile until the day I die. Anyway, I took a deep breath, said a little prayer to God, crossed myself, primal screamed, and then jumped. There I was, falling through the air, scared out of my mind. Then I remembered what Dylan said and figured if I was going to get out of this alive, I had to do what he said. I grabbed the ripcord and started to count. I got to 50 and pulled the cord. The parachute then popped open, scaring me even more. I arched my back and leaned my head as well. "Open, please, open," I screamed. There was a sudden jolt, which hurt like a bitch, by the way, just like Dylan said. After a few seconds, I came back to a normal position and realized that I was floating through the air. I reached up and grabbed the two handles. Okay, this isn't so bad. I kind of like it, I thought to myself. Getting comfortable with the situation, I started to look around. I saw Ronick, Ari, Stacy, and Amanda with their chutes open, doing circles in midair. I decided to try it. I was just about to pull the right handle when I heard terrified screaming from above. I looked up and saw Dylan falling through the air, his chute unopened. At first, I thought he was playing around until he went soaring past me and slammed into Stacy's parachute, causing her chute to collapse, and the two of them began falling to the ground, Stacy screaming as well. I watched in complete horror as their bodies plummeted until I couldn't see them anymore. I screamed and began to thrash my body all around. I soon realized that all the added pressure on the harness and the wires could cause them to break and I would fall as well. I stopped squirming and stayed as still as possible. Well, as still as I could. I was shaking like a leaf. I then decided to try and follow the other three down to the ground. I began turning left and right, trying to keep at least one of them in my line of sight. Soon the ground came into view. Luckily there was a huge field close. The other three saw it as well and began heading for it, I assume. I watched as Ronnie landed on the ground, then Eric, about 50 feet from Ronnie, then Amanda, about 30 feet from Eric, all popping off their harnesses. I followed shortly after, screaming as I did. My feet hit the ground. I tucked and rolled, like Dylan said. Boy, and it really hurt. Ronnie and Eric then came running towards me. Amanda was just standing there, her hands covering her face, screaming and crying. "Get this thing off!" I yelled, struggling to get free. Ronnie then hit the harness directly in the middle and popped it open, and I quickly took it off, ripping my tie off as well. I threw it to the ground. "What the hell happened to Dylan and Stacy? We've got to find them," Eric screamed frantically. "Dylan! Stacy!" He began to scream. Ronnie stopped him. "Eric, they're dead, man. We got to worry about ourselves now," he said. "Screw you, Ronnie. I'm going to find my friends," Eric yelled and began to rush past Ronnie. Ronnie then grabbed him by the arm. Eric spun and took a swing. Ronnie ducked and pushed Eric back. I then stepped in the middle of them, their fists clenched to their sides, Amanda still screaming. "Stop, you guys. Fighting each other's not going to help. I said, holding my hands up to both of them. You're right, I said, looking at Ronnie. They probably are dead, and you're right, too, I said, turning my head to look at Eric. We do need to find them, but poor Amanda is left all alone over there. Let's calm her down, then we'll all go look for them together, okay? Eric and Ronnie just stared at each other. Fine, Eric said aggressively. All right, Ronnie said, just as aggressive. They both unclenched their fists and shook hands. All three of us then walked over to Amanda, who had stopped screaming at that point and was just standing there. We all gathered around her as she stood there shaking in complete shock. Dylan, Stacy, she said. Her voice was cracking as she did. We'll find them, Eric said. Yeah, we'll find them, I said as well. Ronnie then looked around. Where in the hell are we? He asked. I don't know, but there's got to be people somewhere around here, I stated. Which way do we go? Amanda said, a little calmer. I think I saw a house or something in the middle of those trees over there when I came in, Eric said, pointing to his left. I saw it too, Amanda chimed in. Let's go that way, Ronnie said. Let's go. We all began to run in that direction, leaving the parachutes and my tie behind. After a couple of minutes of running, we came to the edge of the trees. We walked in and immediately felt the atmosphere around us change. The air was really thick and heavy. I kinda had a misty feel to it. What the hell? Eric said. Do you feel that? Yeah, I said. The air in here feels wrong. We gotta keep going. We've gotta find them, he said. We all agreed. We walked and walked and walked some more with nothing but trees around us. No house, no cabin, no nothing. Nothing but trees. We all stopped and looked around. Dylan! Stacy! Stacy! Dylan! We all began to yell. As we were yelling, the wind picked up drastically. I looked up to see storm clouds moving in at a speed I'd never seen before. Look, I said, pointing towards the sky. Oh, just great, Amanda said. Two of my friends are most likely dead. We're lost in the middle of some forest, only God knows where, and now it's going to rain. Come on, guys, we've got to go, Ronnie said, and took off running through the trees. Wait! We all screamed in unison as we began to try and keep up with Ronnie. Now, given the fact that Ronnie ran track in high school, he was much faster than us. We watched him dodge left and right, jump over tree branches, until he disappeared into a cluster of trees. We all stopped, leaning over, trying to catch our breath. Ronnie! I screamed, then coughed from the lack of oxygen. Let him go, man, Eric said. We'll never catch up to him. We can't just leave him out here, Amanda stated. He left us, remember? Eric shot back. The rain then began to fall. Slowly at first, then rapidly increased over time until it was coming down in sheets. We took off through the woods, trying to dodge the raindrops. That didn't work out too well. Anyway, we stopped dead in our tracks when we heard Ronnie scream. He screamed again, and we bolted through the rain, through the trees in the direction of the sound. Ronnie! Eric screamed. Ronnie, where are you? There was no reply. We walked a little further and found Ronnie. Well, what was left of him. The victim of some kind of vicious animal attack. His right arm was severed from his body, as well as his left foot. His clothes were shredded, exposing massive wounds, deep wounds to his face, upper torso, and stomach area, as well as both of his legs. Blood was everywhere. Amanda and I both vomited repeatedly right there on the spot. Eric just stared at the body. What in the hell did this? Eric yelled, looking up at us. A bear? A mountain lion? What? What the hell did this? I don't know, man, but we've got to get the hell out of here before it comes back and kills all of us, I screamed back at him. The rain was then accompanied by the sound of thunder as lightning bolts filled the sky and the fog began to roll in. Let's go, I screamed. Eric, Amanda, and I then began to run again in the opposite direction, back the way we came. The fog was growing thicker with every passing second. I stopped running and began walking, barely able to see through the fog. Amanda! Eric! I yelled. I'm right here. I barely heard Amanda say through the sound of the storm. Where's Eric? I don't know, I yelled. I'm coming to you. Keep talking and I'll follow the sound of your voice. I don't know what to say, she yelled. Then sing. You like to sing. Sing something, I yelled back. Sing it loud. I then heard Amanda start belting out the opening verse to the Lita Ford song, Kiss Me Deadly. I always loved Amanda's voice. Anyway, I finally found her and she stopped singing. Both of us completely drenched. Well, obviously we were drenched. It was pouring its ass off out there. Anyway, we've got to find Eric, Amanda said. We both started yelling for him. Eric! Eric! Where are you, Eric? We screamed. Suddenly, the rain stopped falling. The thunder and lightning diminished. The sky cleared up. The storm was gone, but the fog remained. Guys! Guys, where are you? We then heard Eric scream. Over here! Over here! We yelled. Where? Eric said, a little bit closer now. Keep coming. I can hear you're getting closer, I yelled. Finally, he reached us. Amanda then hugged him, thankful that he was okay. We've got to stick together, he said. We can't get lost in this fog anymore. Suddenly, we heard several tree limbs breaking right behind us. We all turned around. Who's there? Eric yelled and took a few steps forward. Show yourself, he said. We then heard the most ear-piercing growl as two bright red lights appeared through the fog. They were not lights. No, they were eyes. Eric stepped back and screamed as this massive creature appeared through the fog. It was like anything I'd ever seen before, not even in horror movies. It had to be at least 10 feet tall. It had pale gray skin that hugged tightly against its skeletal frame, with 4 arms on the left and 4 arms on the right of its torso. Its legs were muscular and massive. Its hands and its feet were incredibly large, with nails the size of railroad spikes. It had 2 bright red eyes, 2 holes where its nose should have been, and a mouth that stretched from one side of its head to the other. 2 deer-like ears sat on top of its head, with several horns protruding from the top of it as well. Some of the horns were broken. It quickly reached out with one of the 4 arms on its right and snatched Eric up. Amanda screamed as one of this thing's left arms reached over and ripped Eric's head completely off, throwing both the head and the body onto the ground, blood pouring out like it was a water faucet. We then took off running, screaming our brains out. That thing right behind us. How it didn't catch us, I'll never know, but it didn't. We ran for about 10 minutes until we reached the tree line. Just beyond the tree line was a road, a paved road. We ran out onto the road and stopped. Luckily, nothing was coming. The fog lifted quickly as we did. Amanda was screaming and crying after just witnessing her brother being brutally ripped apart by that behemoth of a creature. That massive creature then came to the tree line itself and just stood there, growling. After 5 minutes or so, the creature turned and left. It can't leave the trees, I said, then walked over to Amanda, hugging her and letting her cry on my shoulder. Under any other circumstance, I would have been the happiest man in the world. It's going to be okay, I said, rubbing her hair. She then looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Now, what I did next, some would call me a jerk for doing, but at the time, it felt like the right thing to do. As her gorgeous blue eyes locked with mine, I leaned over and gently kissed her lips. I knew for sure that the second our lips touched that she was going to beat the living dog shit out of me right there in the middle of the road. But she didn't. She just leaned her head back and smiled. Amanda then reached her hand out to me, and I took her hand. We then walked down the center of the road on the yellow line. She began singing that Lita Ford song again. When she sang the first line of the chorus, I stopped walking, spun her around, and planted a great big kiss directly on her lips, and she kissed me back. I know, right. Now, they say that relationships that evolve out of traumatic experiences never last, but I was going to ride that wave for as long as I could. There we were in the middle of the road, soaking wet and kissing. The kissing soon came to an end when we heard air brakes, the sound of a diesel engine, and a tractor trailer truck horn. I looked to my right, and Amanda looked to her left, and saw this huge tractor trailer standing there, about 10 feet from us. The driver opened the door, climbed out, and said, "You kids all right?" He was a big man, mid-50s maybe, wearing blue jeans, a dark brown t-shirt, an unbuttoned red flannel button-up shirt over the top of it, and a green John Deere hat. We both ran to him. "Get us out of here, please. Please help. Where in the hell are we said at the same time. "Get in and tell me what happened on the way. I got a deadline to meet." We got in, and I gave him the whole rundown of what happened from the time I woke up to the time he picked us up. "Your friends are still out there?" he asked. We just nodded our heads. "Screw the deadlines. I'm taking you to the cops," he stated. He then dropped us off at the local police station. We walked in and told them what had happened as well, including the name of the skydiving company. Now, to make an even longer story short, Amanda and I spent 3 days in the local hospital in the same room, talking to doctors and psychologists to make sure that we were okay. Somehow, the news of what happened got out, but as I said, they didn't tell you what really happened. On the second day we were there, we were approached by an attorney who came in our room, shut the door behind him, and said he represented the skydiving company and that he was authorized to offer us $250,000 each, not to mention the name of the company anymore. We accepted. He also made us sign a non-disclosure agreement. We gave a description of Steve to the local police. Come to find out, Steve's real name was Randall Whitmore, an escaped patient from the hospital for the criminally insane back in the town we lived in. Where he got those tacky clothes from, I'll never know. One of the police officers told us that after speaking to the nurses at the facility, Randall would often pretend he was a pilot, flying other patients around, and those how-to books were found in his room. Apparently, he took the keys off of the real pilot's belt while he was sleeping at the terminal. As far as I know, he was never found. The police did find Eric and Ronnie's bodies, as well as Eric's head and all of Ronnie's parts after 3 days of searching the wooded area where the truck had picked us up. Mile marker 113. I remember it from when we got in the truck. I looked over and saw it. Anyway, their bodies and parts were returned to their families for proper burial. There were no reports of the creature. Dylan and Stacy's bodies were never recovered and were believed to have been eaten by a pack of wild coyotes that were seen in and around the area. I asked Amanda why she always took advantage of the fact that I liked her. She said she liked me too and was just playing hard to get. After we were released from the hospital, the sheriff had one of his deputies drive Amanda and I home. That was 2 years ago. Amanda and I are still together and are expecting our first child in June. She moved in with me, and I couldn't be happier. We visit Eric's and Ronnie's grave as often as we can just to say hi. We put our money together and open up a little coffee shop in town called Coffee 24/7. Stop by sometime. Amanda drinks coffee just as much as I do. Anyway, in case you were wondering why I'm telling you all this, well, it's because today, as I was mowing the grass with my brand new John Deere lawnmower, a cackle of crows decided to land on the top of the fence that surrounds our house. No big deal, I said to myself. It's just a bunch of birds. Then I looked closer. One of the crow's necks was leaning over to the left, its face was smashed in, and its right eye was missing. In the memory of Dylan Masters, Stacy Wright, Ronald W. Jackson, and Eric Miller, you are truly missed.